to Ivory Coast by using all those tools. So basically, yeah, so using AI, being aware of the new technologies that we as startups trying to build to help all those companies or the mobility sectors to be more working together as working capital. Because I think, as I'm saying back to Senegal, to people from PAPS, for other companies, we are not competitors. We are all working towards one goal. It's to make the logistics sector move forward and go further. So yes, that was my input.
Yeah, you guys put some really good points there in terms of success of Western Africa and Franco Africa in terms of logistics. We all know some of the successful case studies that move that have expanded and scaled across Africa. What would you guys put out to the rest of Africa in terms of how to build the infrastructure that you guys have created in the region?
Yeah, if you look beyond like West and Central Africa, where the market is really integrated, actually using one currency is already an advantage. Having one law for accounting, it's really an advantage, and also having one law for insurance, it's really like unique, right? So it is difficult when you go to other parts of Africa where the markets are not so well integrated. So I believe that the legal framework needs to come first, right? That's a bedrock, right? Without an agreement on how people do business together, it's going to be very difficult to innovate. Because, for example, just let me take one example. The good thing with Africa, like West Africa and the CIMA region, where you have 15 African countries operating under one single insurance regulation, you can have like your something as simple as your vehicle insurance and just cross the border with the same insurance certificates, which is valid in Burkina Faso, which is valid in Mali, which is valid in Senegal. Such simple thing doesn't exist in other parts of Africa. That's why I'm saying that the best and the most important thing to do first is to achieve the legal common framework, right? That's a bedrock for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump quickly on that part because we have the ZECLAF, which is the economic zone of libre-échange, and then which is a 7 billion market where we can tap into everything. But into insurance, the easiest example, as he said, is I'm in Senegal. I have to go do some business in Gambia. I can drive my car from Senegal to Gambia, having the CDAO insurance, and it will help me get into the border, cross the border easily, ride with my car, and come back. So yeah, the legal part is really important. If we lack that part, we can start thinking of new ways of doing business with the same currency. Also, that's really important to have one currency. Yeah. So yes.
I don't have much more else to add, but I think that's where things like public and private sector come together, because not every region is lucky enough as you guys to have one regulator. What, like, I'm extremely jealous. And speaking of PaySpark specifically, we're a payment service provider, and none of the markets we're in have the same regulator, and that is a massive blocker because you're starting everything from scratch, and starting in every new country takes anything from 9 months to, I don't want to shade any regulator here, but I feel like this is where we need to be, I guess, expressing our frustrations and then making it just a little bit easier, because you can't make progress if you have to be dealing with all of this. It's just a waste of effort and manpower, honestly. But yeah.
But I think that Africa, the African Union is trying to do a good job in that direction with the AFCFTA, the free trade. Yeah, it's taking a bit of time, as everything which requires all head of states to come together and agree. It's taking time, but there's no turning back. So I believe that if we continue going to that direction, probably we're going to be able to solve all those cross-currency, multiple currency, multiple legal framework, and etc.
Yeah, you guys are definitely the case study in terms of the future in South Africa. In terms, I mean, we struggle in Southern Africa cross border, so you guys are the flagship in terms of logistics and opening those borders for cross border trade using technology. But all three of you have mentioned AI as revolutioning the industry. Is it really going to revolution the industry? What's the impact of AI going forward now for West Africa and Africa?
Look, I can talk about this for the next 3 hours. So, honestly, because first of all, I have a supply chain background. I'm an engineer in supply chain, so that's my first love. So, I mean, many ways. First, it's about traceability, right? In supply chain, it's about knowing when, where, exactly. So position. Second, it's about efficiency, right? So for example, if I take this guy or I take another, let's say logistics startup that do like parcel delivery. Okay, let me take an example, real life example. I was in the US 2-3 days ago. I ordered like a smartwatch for 2 of my daughters and they came up in the morning. I ordered on Friday night. It came up in the morning. That's what I call precision logistics. Yeah. That's Amazon, right? Without doing any publicity, but that's it, right? So that's AI because there's nobody there trying to fulfill my order. It's all automated through machine learning. That's how it can happen. And then, of course, with machine learning, you can achieve scale, right? You can process a lot more orders. You can process a lot more parcels. You can process a lot more routes, right, without any human intervention, right? So that's how I see this is going to completely change the landscape. And it will level the playing field. Like, suddenly, small startup can now compete with Africa Global Logistics because they have access to powerful technologies, right?
You said it all. That's exactly.
I can talk about that for the next 3 hours.
That's exactly how it has to go. Because really AI, intelligence, artificial, are the bootstrap, are the really boost from our, as a startupper, as we doing let's say all the brainstorming, how we want to do stuff, how we want to take this parcel from Dakar to Ivory Coast in a small time frame and with efficiency, as he said. So yeah, we need AI. And AI is really taking place into that logistics sector.
I mean, now I'm just talking for the sake of it, but
well, then, just you mentioned Amazon. So, I mean, how do you compete? Like in South Africa, in terms of our market, we've been battling with Amazon's. How do small startups basically compete with those larger logistics companies like Amazon?
Very good question.
So, yeah, I think this is where countries like South Africa have a bit of a disadvantage by being so easy to work with because you get all the big people come in and just wreak havoc. And I would say in West Africa particularly, even in Anglophone speaking West African, you don't necessarily get a lot of big players because the market is very, very nuanced. Like Nigeria is a beast on its own. And then everyone makes the mistake that, oh, if you can hack Nigeria, you can hack Ghana. Firstly, good luck hacking Nigeria. And then Ghana is also a completely different ball game. So I feel like that's where we have an advantage that we're local and we understand how it works. We understand the cultural nuance. Again, if I take Paystack, for example, we're acquired by Stripe, which is a massive multinational PSP. There's a reason why they didn't come into Africa. They're in every other continent, and they're like, you know what? Let's just work with people that actually know what they're doing there. And I feel like that's where we can see this go, is there can be some kind of partnership or JD or anything that makes sense, but there even like navigating the regulatory landscape, the legal landscape, you need local expertise. And I feel like if we organize ourselves very quickly, there won't be room for these people to come in. And we can now leverage, and we can scale, we can leverage, and if they want to work, they have to work with us as opposed to squashing us.
Yes, same. So for all those big companies coming and just taking the market and doing big things, I think they really look the good part for them to work with us as startups or as SMEs is we have the local expertise. We know all the rules and regulation, how things works on the real life, because sometimes when you're outside, they tell you stuff. Once you arrive, you see a different landscape. So yes, completely different landscape. So yeah, that's how it's supposed to go and should go.
I think they are just mentioning the right points. It's all about knowing the culture of the country you're trying to enter to. Let me just give you like a simple example again. So you go to US, you talk about Black Friday. Every American understands you. It's a good thing because it means discount and whatever. Black Friday in French means Vendredi Noir.
Yeah.
It's actually a bad thing.
Yes.
So you understand?
Correct.
So you need to be aware of those little cultural nuances that can make or break your business, right? That's where the local startups with the local knowledge and understanding have a slight advantage, right, compared to the bigger one. And because such big companies like Amazon, like Google, like OpenAI level the play field of technology by making those technologies available to anyone who just want to spend 2 hours per week learning, then there is no so much difference. You see what I mean? The only difference then that can be about capital, right? The infusion of capital, right? That's the only big difference.
And just to add to that, there's an example of what's happened in Nigeria. So moving away from the sector completely, we had a lot of the accounting firms come in, so KPMG, PwC, and it was like, oh, we'll partner with you little guys, and that never happened. Took all of them out of business. So what we found is law firms, for example, a lot of British law firms have been trying to come into Nigeria for ages, and the law firms, so private sector and public sector, have worked together to craft a very, very strong legal memorandum that has not so much prevented it, but put things in skill to make sure that it will always be a partnership and not a takeover. And there's some kind of reciprocity, just making sure that it's fair. Because what happens is, we're super nice people, Africans. We like to smile. We like to welcome people. And sometimes it ends up being to our detriment. So I think sometimes you just need to be smart about it. There's a lot to learn from having people come in. We're not going to block other businesses, but you need to make sure that the locals are better off for it. And there are many ways to make that work if we work with the right people.
I think somebody in the crowd previously during the pitch said that the market is also, the region's quite successful, but the market is saturated. So for startups, how do you go to market within in West Africa? What advice would you guys put?
So just being innovative and creative, because the market will be saturated. The market will be with the big ones that comes into my market, so the transportation market. We've seen Uber trying to come to Senegal, but we've seen Each, Yongo, Yassi, all those big companies that comes and just crush the landscape and brought, the new technology and everything. But when we try to do it by ourselves, it's hard because it's a lack of trust from the funds, it's lack of trust from the government for the policies and everything, and because we don't have money. We are not making revenue, enough money right now. So it's a bit both. So to be maintaining in this sector or to be live in this sector, you have to be creative and innovative. That's my point of view. That's how I see things.
Something else I'll say that I think is a little bit overlooked is the people involved. So a lot of times, big companies come in or bigger players come in and they pay better, so maybe everyone rushes there. But you find if you give it enough time, there are a lot of gaps and people's needs are not met. And what I've seen in a lot of markets that we've expanded into is that the people that seem to be doing well, or rather the companies that seem to be doing well, are those that put their people first. So you can have the snazziest product, and that's great. You can have everything tight, but if the people who are running your business and making it work and interacting with your customers are not driven, they don't believe in your vision, they're not well taken care of, it's eventually going to crumble. And I feel like that's a very heavily overlooked bit. So when you're building out your go-to-market strategy, actually think about the people that are going to be running it, and I feel like it'll be a little bit easier.
I want to take a slightly different point of view regarding the fact that the market is saturated. Just by looking at the sheer power of the demographics. I mean, look, Africa is what right now? 1.2 billion? We're going to add another 800 million by 2050.
Yep.
So I don't know what people are talking about when they talk about the market, which is being saturated, right? So I believe the potential is there. So you'll need to listen to your customers first, right? Because if it was only about capital, I won't mention some companies here, right? But if it was only about capital, would have maybe have the next Amazon, if you know you guys what I mean, right? I won't mention the name. So it's not only about capital, it's about listening to your customers and understanding exactly what kind of problems you solve. Let me give another example, the last one. Who knows Crocs? The brand of the shoes, Crocs.
Yeah.
You know that this is ugly actually, right?
Yeah.
But the brand is worth 10 billion USD right now. Exactly. Because it serves a need. It's comfortable. So people standing for a long time, all worried. Like from surgeons to nurses to people working in restaurants, in cuisine, and etc. So if you solve a real problem for the customers, they will find you.
Okay. I think almost time's going. So just to wrap up, what do you guys think the future of logistics is in West Africa and Africa?
I'll go first. So I think the future is we have three things that we need to solve. We need to be able to solve logistics within our individual countries because that is still quite broken. You order something online, you don't know when you're going to get it until the Okada or bike or tuk-tuk Boda driver is calling you maybe 7 days after your order. So there's a massive gap there. If you get it at all, if it gets lost, you know, you're messaging someone on Instagram, where's my package, the whole thing. And then we need to connect Africa to each other. If I want to order a package from Nairobi in Lagos, why is that not straightforward? Why can I just go online? Why do I need to maybe message DHL separately? Or I order it on their site separately, and then there's a whole separate logistics chain, and it's just a mess. And then we need to connect Africa to the rest of the world. And I feel like if we can get this right, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in that order, but all of it needs to be complete for us to say that we've done a good job. That's what I think.
Yeah, same for me. It's connecting Africa into each other. So I think that's the key part. If we connect Morocco to Cape Town, if you connect Nairobi to Dakar, if you connect Cameroon to I don't know, Mozambique, Lagos. I ordered today, as he said, he ordered on Amazon and get delivered the next day. I can order something in Morocco from a Moroccan commerçant and then get it delivered 2 days later in Dakar. I think if we have that, we good. we good to go.
The future for me is looking bright. Let's go for more free visas.
Yeah.
That's number one for me. I don't need a visa to go to, I don't know, to South Africa, for example, right?
Yep, true.
And then the same thing needs to happen for the cargo, for the trade, right? If we're able to break those barriers, and Afreximbank, without mentioning them, is doing a fantastic job in that field, then we're in the right direction.
I hear that Africa is becoming more and more united. Let's give it up for Africa, please, ladies and gentlemen. We will take 2 questions, if you don't mind. Yes, sir? Only 2 questions, and then we'll go to the last one.
You were talking about getting customers by responding to a problem and how much it is important to have an issue to solve to grow your business. And I'm pretty sure that everyone agree with that, but I have another question about it. What is a good problem? Especially in West Coast Africa and East Coast Africa.
Very beautiful British accent. Thank you, sir.
I'll start and then hand over to Alexandra. So you say a good problem. I don't know, how many of you have heard about Pelumi Nubi, the lady that drove from London to Lagos a couple of months ago? So when she was in Europe, she was fine. And the moment she entered Africa, all hell broke loose. From getting her car bashed to not being able to enter different countries, even though she had all the right. It was embarrassing, honestly, as well as painful to watch. And I feel like that is what we're solving here. Like, someone did something great that had all eyes on the continent, and we had the chance to show what we really have, and we messed up. And that's just one of the many issues that we face. I'm sure everyone here has at least one horrific visa story, whether they're trying to enter, whether it was Nigeria or South Africa or somewhere. These are the problems we're trying to solve. We're all building fantastic solutions, but it's just a little bit too broken to reap the real benefits of what we're doing. You're building a great business like Crocs. You could be the next African Crocs, but it's like, how do you get your product everywhere? And I think that's what we're trying to do here is our brilliant solution should not be in isolation with where we live. We should be able to send it across different cities, across different countries, across different continents.
I mean, she says it all, right? It's fluidity and mobility. A problem which is good enough is a problem which affects everyone, right? It's a problem big enough, right? So that basically it has an effect on all the population, right? Regarding the borders, right? Regardless of whether you are in Africa, it affects you. So if that problem is big enough, then that problem is good to be solved, right? So that's it.
If the problem is big enough, then it's big enough to be solved. Wow, we've got a lot of great intellectual and panelists. Let's give it up for them, please. Nefe Etomi, I have a question for you. Yeah, you speak. What does your name mean?
The full name is Oma Nefe. It means a child is greater than wealth.
I knew it. So beautiful. It's good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Thomas, Alexandre, Nefe, and Amadou. Let's give it up for them. Thank you. Photo.
So maybe let me introduce you very quickly the panelists. Maybe I'll start myself first. So my name is Tamim. I'm a general partner at Seed Stars Africa Ventures. We're an early stage fund investing in Africa. And I think from our 12-year experience on the continent, we've realized that Francophone Africa is still lacking a lot of investment, a lot of support. And in our last fund, we've actually taken the commitment to invest about 50% of the fund in Francophone Africa. Of that, of course, a large chunk is going to Côte d'Ivoire, which is one of the largest startup markets. But let me so introduce you quickly my co-panelists. Cynthia, principal at Savvy Ventures. You gave a speech earlier. And everybody knows you here, so Savvy is a VC fund investing in early stage companies with a strong focus on Francophone Africa. And you have invested already in 14 companies in Francophone West and Central Africa. Next is Lina. So thank you for being here. Round of applause for Lina. Investment manager at Launch Africa. So Lina is based between Abidjan and New York. And Launch Africa, everybody knows it, Pan-African VC fund investing in early stage pre-Series A rounds and has 140 companies and 30 in Francophone Africa. And then we have Cédric. Welcome, Cédric. So Cédric is one of the founders and CEO of M Studio. So it's a startup studio looking to transform the informal sector, mostly in Francophone Africa, with a particular focus on supporting women and youth. Welcome, Cédric. And last but not least, we have Richard here with you. So Richard is a VC scout for Microtraction, a Nigerian VC fund that writes the first check of technology companies in Africa, typically 100K USD at the pre-seed and seed stage. Thank you, Richard, as well. So before we dive in, I just wanted to give a little bit of context about Francophone Africa and why we're having this panel around here. And while I was preparing for the panel, I was trying